They kicked me out of a fashion show, laughed at me like I was poor. But guess who bought the $150,000 dress? I've loved this brand since the 70s. Back then, their magazine ads were taped to my bedroom wall. Creased, yellowed, sacred. I couldn't afford their clothes, of course. I worked 2 jobs just to keep the lights on, but that didn't stop me from dreaming. Decades passed. My hair turned gray, then white. My hands wrinkled. But one thing never changed: my love for their elegance. So when I saw they were hosting a private runway show downtown, I knew I had to go. Not to chase a fantasy, but to honor the girl I once was. I arrived in my best coat. Wool, vintage, deep navy. I'd had it tailored years ago and treated it like treasure. My shoes were leather, old but clean. I wore a silk scarf I bought in Paris long ago, and a classic red lipstick, the only makeup I still trusted. As I stepped onto the carpet, heads turned. Not in admiration, but in confusion. I wasn't dressed like the others. No designer logos screaming for attention. No high ponytails, fillers, diamonds, just me. Just my memories. Near the entrance, 3 women in black stood like a wall. One with a headset, one with a clipboard, one with eyes that scanned me up and down like I was an insect on glass. "Hi, this event is invite only," said the one with the clipboard, her voice a sugary blade. "Do you have the right location?" asked the headset, eyebrows raised. "There's a cafe around the corner," the third one added, smirking. "Might be more your vibe." I calmly pulled a white envelope from my clutch. The invitation had my full name embossed in gold, sent by the creative director himself. I held it out with a steady hand. They didn't even read it. The clipboard girl grabbed it, glanced for half a second, then scoffed. You'll need to verify this." Behind them, a few guests were watching. A group of young influencers giggled behind their phones. One of them whispered loud enough for me to hear, "Grandma's crashing the show?" A security guard was called over. A large man with no patience in his eyes. "We're asking you to leave, ma'am," he said. I stood frozen for a moment, disbelief swirling in my chest. Then I turned around and walked away. But not because I was ashamed. Not because they had power. I walked away because I knew something they didn't. Something they'd find out very, very soon. I didn't go home that night. Not yet. I had one more thing to do. I waited in the car, sipping tea from a thermos I brought along. My driver, yes, I have one, sat quietly up front. He didn't ask questions. He didn't need to. His job wasn't to understand the woman in the back seat. His job was to bring her wherever she said without delay. At exactly 9 p.m., he opened my door. The show was over. Guests were filing out, tipsy on champagne and self-importance. Lights dimmed. Flashes cooled. Paparazzi had turned their attention elsewhere. I walked in calmly, invitation once again in hand. But this time, I didn't need it. I went through the back entrance, the one reserved for clients. The showroom was quiet, but not empty. Inside, under a soft golden spotlight, hung the dress, the finale piece, the one they'd been teasing online for months. Hand-embroidered, full-length, pure silk and crushed glass beadwork, stitched by artisans in Florence. They'd revealed it last, worn by their top model, and already announced it had been sold within minutes of the reveal. They just didn't know who had bought it. Because I didn't bid like everyone else. I didn't text a handler or raise a paddle. I'd made a phone call 3 hours before the show. I'd wired the money directly to the brand's owner. Not the PR girl, not the designer, the owner. An old friend, someone who once owed me a favor I never called in. Until now. The room was quiet until a familiar voice cut through the stillness. "You must be Mrs. Valentine, a young assistant with wide eyes approached, holding a glass of water and a velvet chair. I smiled. Yes, dear, that's me. He nodded and gestured toward the dress. Would you like to see it again before we arrange delivery? No, I said, slowly walking toward it. I'd like to wear it now. His eyes widened. Right now? Yes, tonight. Moments later, I stood in front of a full-length mirror, the dress hugging me like it was made for me, because it was. Every bead shimmered like moonlight. The weight of it felt regal, like armor. The assistant handed me a box. Inside was a pair of crystal heels. These are yours too, he said. Gifted by the house. They said to thank you. Personally, I walked out of the back room and into the lounge, where guests were gathering for the after-party. Laughter, clinking glasses, ambient jazz. And silence. The moment I stepped in, everything stopped. I saw their faces, the three women who'd laughed. Clipboard, headset, and champagne girl. Their mouths dropped. The brunette nearly dropped her flute. The redhead blinked, frozen mid-step. The blonde just stared at me, like she was seeing a ghost in pearls. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. I walked through the crowd, every eye on me, and took a seat in the front row of the VIP lounge. One of the influencers who had laughed earlier awkwardly adjusted her phone and looked away. A host appeared beside me. Mrs. Valentine, would you like something to drink? Earl Grey, I said, with honey. As he left, the brand's creative director walked in. He spotted me instantly and hurried over with a warm smile. You look divine, he said. I'm so glad it's you. That dress was meant for someone with your grace. He leaned in and kissed my hand. I smiled again, this time wider. I'm glad you think so. Your staff, however, seemed to think otherwise. His expression changed. What do you mean? Before I could answer, Clipboard Girl appeared, flustered and pale. Sir, I didn't know. He cut her off. You didn't ask. That's the problem. She stood frozen, eyes darting from him to me. I didn't say anything cruel. I didn't raise my voice. I just looked her straight in the eyes. Next time, I said softly, be careful who you laugh at. She nodded quickly, then turned and practically ran. I took a sip of my tea. The jazz picked up again. Conversations resumed. But the energy had shifted. No one looked at me the same way after that. They saw what they missed the first time. Power, poise, and a reminder that not all wealth wears glitter. Some of us wear memory, dignity, and silence that roars louder than applause. The after-party glowed with champagne and caution. People kept glancing at me, whispering softer than before. They weren't laughing now. I was no longer a strange old woman who wandered into the wrong world. I was a legend, a mystery, and the owner of the dress that had just broken the brand's record for most expensive sale in history. Still, I didn't stay long. I didn't need the stares. I didn't crave the apologies. I didn't come for revenge. I came for peace. As I got up to leave, the creative director followed me. May I walk you out? He asked, with a softness in his voice I hadn't heard earlier. I nodded. Outside, the cool night air wrapped around me like a silk shawl. My driver opened the door, but before I stepped in, I paused and looked back. The three women from earlier stood by the exit, whispering rapidly, their confidence shattered. Clipboard Girl stepped forward, clutching her hands. Mrs. Valentine, I wanted to say I'm so sorry for how we treated you earlier. I looked at her, really looked. Her makeup was flawless, her clothes new and expensive, but her voice cracked. Her pride had taken a hit tonight, and maybe, just maybe, that was a good thing. You judged me before I even opened my mouth, I said gently. Do you know how many times in my life that's happened? She didn't answer. You looked at my coat and saw poverty. You looked at my age and saw irrelevance. But you never once looked me in the eye. The other two stood behind her, speechless. I hope you remember this moment the next time you meet someone who doesn't look the part. Because money doesn't always shout, and class never has to. I turned and stepped into the car. The door closed with a quiet finality. Inside, I removed the heels and let out a soft sigh. My feet ached. My back was stiff. But my heart was 20 again. The car drove through the city, passing billboards and glittering shops. At a red light, I saw a girl standing on the sidewalk. She looked no older than 20, holding a sketch pad, biting the end of her pencil. She reminded me of me. I asked the driver to stop. Rolled down the window. "What are you drawing?" I asked. She turned, startled, then smiled shyly. "Just fashion stuff," she said. "Dreams." I reached into my purse and pulled out a card. "This is my boutique. I own it. Come by tomorrow. I'd like to see more of your work." Her eyes lit up, wide and bright. "Really? Really?" She looked like she wanted to cry, then nodded with so much gratitude it nearly broke me. "Thank you," she whispered. "Dreams belong to the ones who never stop chasing them," I said. We drove off again, the moment settling into my memory like a perfectly placed stitch. That dress? It wasn't revenge. It was a reminder to them, to me, to anyone watching, that time doesn't steal beauty, it deepens it. That elegance isn't youth. It's knowing who you are, no matter who's watching. I wore that dress one more time, at the opening of a scholarship fund for young designers who couldn't afford art school. We named it after my mother, who sewed clothes by candlelight and believed every woman deserved something beautiful. They asked me to speak. I stepped up to the microphone, in front of a room full of hopeful eyes, and said, "They once told me I didn't belong. Now I build the rooms they want to enter." Applause. Cameras flashed, but I wasn't posing for them. I was standing for her, the girl I used to be, the one who dreamed. And I think, somewhere deep down, she was standing too.